Hello and welcome to round 2 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast. I'm Terri Morrow and I'm here with Catherine Herlecko. Say hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Usually on Parenting Roundabout we talk about parenting issues, but once a week Catherine and I like to get together to discuss TV, movies, books, and other entertainment topics because it's nice to talk about something other than parenting for a change. This week, we're going to be talking about the long-awaited Hamildoc, otherwise known as Hamilton's America, on PBS's Great Performances, and we will be continuing our sports night and West Wing watches. But first, it was Era's night on Dancing with the Star, and the era I was happiest to see done was the one that had Maureen as part of the show. End of an era. Go away, lady.
Goodbye.
Oh, thank you, voters, for finally putting her and Artem and us out of her misery. Catherine, what did you think about this week's Dance Through History?
Well, you know, some of them were a lot more logical than others. I mean,
yes.
the 90s with the power ballad from Aerosmith with Ryan and Cheryl. I don't know. Maybe we're not far away enough from the 90s to really, concentrate that whole decade into one song. I don't know, but I hope you appreciated how Len gave them an extra point for no faffing about.
I have to say, I fast forwarded through the judges' comments, so I did see in somebody's comments that was, that dance, Cheryl did quite a dance to that song. Mm-hmm. And Ryan's instructions seemed to be stand still and try to look as not goofy as possible.
Right.
In the puffy shirt.
Yeah. Which was difficult for him
to do. Difficult for him to do anyway. The puffy shirt did not help.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a little...
Yeah. But there was no faffing about. That's true. They just came out and did a dance.
And then Tom said, oh, well, wait till you see what's coming. You had the laundromat and the car.
He specifically detracted points from that one, right?
Yes,
because he thought there was too much.
He did.
Yes, that was a little. Why laundromat? What made that come into somebody's mind as the appropriate set?
I didn't get that, and also neither Gleb nor Artem needs to wear a wig anymore, please, because
yes, I think that was right.
Scary looking. And then Gleb had that rust colored his. I didn't like his outfit, and his back looked all sweaty. It just was oh, this is not a good combination.
Yes. It looked to me like Maureen was wearing something made out of garbage bags.
Mm-hmm.
That dress was not working for me either.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that were not working, but I did I thought Calvin and Lindsay were really fun to watch. Tara and Sasha looked really nice and just graceful and pretty, and
yes, Lori
and Val, I could have done without all the what is the 60s
I know. It's it seems like they are damping her down to a certain degree, which is what I was hoping they would not do. I feel like the dances Val is choreographing don't really showcase her in the way I would like. They don't use her personality. He's giving her really hard dances and she can do it, but I feel like we're not getting the joy in her performance that we get from, say, Calvin or James.
Yeah. Or Bindi, another young girl who turned out to be really talented, and they choreographed her well and they let her shine. Yeah,
so I don't know if it's that Val is just thrilled to have a partner who can dance really well and just wants to do the most complicated dance possible. My other thought, if I want to be conspiratorial, is that they don't want her to be as fabulous as she can be right away, because then it seems like, what is everybody else even doing there? You know, at the beginning there was such a, it's, she's obviously going to win.
Right.
The rest of it is just a formality. So maybe they thought, maybe we should, hide her light under a bushel for a little while, and then she can come back out and be spectacular at the end. But it makes it really disappointing. I like her so much, and she's so cute. And they have her, in dances that don't really show her off, and other than her technical skill, which is significant. And little segments that kind of take the fun out of it. And Then she's in some futuristic thing in black lipstick, and who thought that was a good idea, to put her in something that she has to look dour for a minute 30? So I don't know. Whereas on the other hand, Lindsay and Sharna are doing a spectacular job of showcasing their partners. Those dances are so fun and so joyful. And, they're just like the highlights of the episode week after week. So kudos to them. They're just doing a terrific job. I thought James's was adorable, and what a personality he is. He is a find.
Yeah, he's great. I wasn't entirely into all the lifts and things that they did in that one because they looked a little labored. Like, oh God, are they gonna make it? And it was the way they were choreographed. It wasn't necessarily the way they did them, but I felt like they didn't come off effortless at all, which when you see Calvin just pick Lindsay up and whirl her around.
And Sasha is also doing a great job of showcasing Tara with significantly higher degree of difficulty.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw that, but Len did point that out too.
Yes. I think within the restrictions that they have, they do fantastic and better than could have been expected.
I did want to punch Derek when he was talking about her when she was standing right there. Come on, man.
That whole thing was a little painful, but when she mentioned that Sasha has started talking in Russian so she can't hear what he's saying, which in one way seems kind of like talking behind her back, but on the other end, that's really taking care of your partner. This is a conversation that needs to take place, but she doesn't need to know what's being said, Derek.
Right. And Derek was like, can she do that? Can we do, it's like, you can ask her. She's right there.
Yeah.
That was what bugged me much more than Sasha speaking Russian.
I thought that was actually kind of sweet, although I can see why she wouldn't have necessarily felt that way. But, we'll get to the team dances later. I continue to be surprised by how little game Mary Lou has. She seems like, on paper, like she should just be blowing this stuff out of the water. She does have the experience on all this stuff, and yet she's so tentative. And so one of the commenters I was following last night was saying that her steps were all very small, and I don't know why she's not really doing this. This is just not a good showcase for her, I guess, for whatever reason. And it's too bad, because I like her, and it seems like she should be somebody who could come out and do this in a spirited way, and she's just not. And it's, I think, making people think she's way older than she is. She's only 64. She's not exactly crawling out of the grave to come here and dance.
Well, right. And and Maureen's like 60, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they're not that far apart.
I know when I'm sitting here at 57 hearing them say,
well, you're the oldest one.
For her age, she's doing remarkably well. And come on. She didn't toddle over here from the old folks' home with her walker. This is not old. Especially these days, this is not old. Cut it out. But then when you come out and you dance very tentatively or when you dither your way through the entire competition, like
Maureen.
Yeah. You encourage people to think that you're like an extra decade older than you actually are, I think.
Right.
So, Jenna and Gleb just continue to make really no impression on me at all, one way or the other. So, it's interesting that they keep winding up in the bottom batch. Yeah. I think they just don't have votes.
Yeah, I wondered, though, if this time how they were in the bottom, at the end. Was that one of those fake ones where it's like they
could have been, because they were like, they had a perfect score the week before. But they had a perfect score doing a dance that a lot of people did not care for. So maybe the voters said, oh, fine, they got high with the judges. I'm going to protest that by not voting for them. Would not surprise me, because I did not care for that dance at all. Right. Anyway, so the team dances were weird, I thought. The waltz thing just seemed really subdued. Not bad, but not, it was okay. And
I liked it.
And then the future thing, presumably they did not pick that music, which was awful. What were they supposed to choreograph for that? Yeah. Other than a joyless future, bleak, apocalyptic future with people wearing gray and excited to see a plant. There's only so much you can do with that.
Yeah, I liked the waltz better.
Yeah, but I mean, that seemed a little stacked, that deck. I don't know.
Right.
Yep. You can't come out and have a hoedown to that music that they...
No, you cannot.
Did they announce a theme for next week?
Halloween!
Oh, that's right, Halloween. Oh, gosh.
We get all of the judges
good.
dressed up and everything, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah. Anyway, who do you think's gonna be next off?
Either Ryan or Mary Lou.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. I'll be interested to see if lack of voting block puts Jana out of there next.
Mm-hmm.
Of the three that are left, Jana, I think, has the most ability in terms of being able to maybe sneak into the top 4 and bump somebody that we like better out.
Right.
But I mean, somebody's voting for Ryan. I guess maybe people who want Cheryl to stay in as long as possible, though I think that probably it would be a mercy to Cheryl at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, man.
I don't think she would hold it against you, fans.
Stiff.
Yeah, I mean, it's his time. It's his time. Mm-hmm. And Mary Lou, I think, also does not have anything additional to show us at this point. You know, she has come and she's done it, and I hope she's had a good time, a better time than she appears to be having. And, you know, either of those could go next, I think. But the 4 that I like the best, Lori, Tara, Calvin, and James, they better be the final 4, I think, because they seem to be, with the possible exception of Jana, they seem to be like a notch above everybody else.
Yeah. And like, if you watch Calvin, I mean, he's always smiling when he needs to be smiling. Like, he's very like professional about it. You know,
he's been getting good choreography, but it helps that he's into it and he's game for it, and definitely has dance ability, and
right,
is not always the case with the people who are, you know, happy to be there but can't move. He can move. I thought he did great in that dance. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so, all right. Well, so that's it for another week. There are still 7 people left. So on we go. So next up is we're going to talk about something that you and I have been waiting for quite some time. It's colloquially in the Twitter known as Hamildoc, right. But it's the documentary Hamilton's America on PBS Great Performances. And I liked it.
I liked it a lot. Yeah, I liked it.
I've watched it 4 times. My husband is making fun of me.
1.5 times, I think. It was a nice, you know, somewhat chronological, somewhat like sort of taking you through the show, like chronological as in through the creation of it, but also through the show itself. Yes. You know, what you learn as it starts and how it goes along. I didn't think that all of the politicians that were in it added a lot to it. Although it was kind of neat to see like people from all over the spectrum talking about it. But the historians that they had were fantastic. Awesome. Yes. I mean, they had, aside from Ron Chernow, who wrote the biography that started it all.
Yes.
They had this awesome, they had Annette Gordon-Reed, who was a Thomas Jefferson expert. And then now I forgot her name, the other
she was fantastic.
Who called Hamilton a bad name. Yeah. I'm not going to say on our podcast. But she was fantastic. I mean, I really felt they added so much to it. Yes.
So much legitimacy and so much fun information too.
Yeah.
I listened to the podcast, The Room Where It's Happening, when they talked with the director of the documentary. And what really, he mentioned a number of times how much they had to cut out, that they had hours and hours and hours with all these people and they had to cut out so much, and, you know, they didn't want to make it too long. So a lot of things in this, as I was watching it, I was going, would have liked more of that, less of that, more of that, less of that. Right. You know, more of anybody, less Jimmy Fallon. So I love Jimmy Fallon. He's great. He was obviously an early supporter of the show. He's, you know, obviously in with the Roots. And so I understand why they wanted to use him, but I do not feel he added even a little tiny bit to it. One talking head segment with him would have been plenty.
Right. I mean, the whole thing where he's just like, I'm looking around and I'm like, this is amazing. Like, yeah, we get that. That's why we're watching.
I know. So it's like, you know, knowing that there was stuff that got cut for that.
Yeah.
Makes me regret it. Also, there was in the trailers, there was a scene with the actresses who play the Schuyler sisters sitting around a table talking, which was not in the documentary at all. It seems to me that the women got kind of short shrift. And so that, more of that, please.
Right.
So maybe there will be a version with outtakes. I want the DVD to have the 100 extra hours that they had to cut.
Yeah.
I will watch all of that. I would watch any of those historians talking for an hour and a half on this topic. I would have watched Sondheim talking longer.
Yeah, he was great.
And Weidman, that was a nice segment, and I wish there was more of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they used as many scenes from the play. I think that the director was saying there was some contractual obligation not to use more than a certain amount, which has not to do with the creators of this musical or anything. It's a Broadway rule. So I think they cheated that nicely by using the footage from the White House. So you could get more performances.
Yeah, they really, I thought there was a nice amount of performance, for those of us who are still waiting.
Yes, well, you at least have tickets. So
I do
you
have
don't get
tickets
to complain.
for 6 months from now.
But I certainly, it bears repeat viewing. I have watched it a number of times, and it furthers the legend of Lin-Manuel Miranda as just the most adorable human being on the planet.
Right.
Anytime he was on, I just wanted to give him a hug. And so if he is faking any of this, if he is really a miserable SOB, he is the world's most amazing actor, because he comes off as so completely genuine and sweet and funny and smart. And I always enjoy that.
Yeah, and it was fun to watch along with his Twitter feed as when the documentary originally aired.
I was almost going to not be able to watch it in real time. I was almost going to have to go to a football game with my daughter, and it's like, well, I'll go with you, of course, and watch it later because it's on immediately afterwards, and it will be on 500 more times on PBS and streaming and all that, but I kind of want to watch the live tweet.
Yes.
Can I please be there for the live tweeting? And it was worth it. And his wife's tweets were hilarious, too.
Yeah. And you learned that she was like best friends with the daughter of Sondheim's colleague.
Yes. And that was fun. And that she remembers pumping before this big speech that's in the thing.
You're right.
It's very funny. And joking about his sweater. That gray sweater. Have you noticed how often he wears that gray sweater and stuff?
He does seem to like that sweater.
He likes that sweater. So, anyway, I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad we have it. And you can always second or third or fourth guess how things should go and what they should have taken and what they should have left out. There's 5 million ways to do a documentary like this. But I was hoping you would have watched the In the Heights documentary for me, so we could have discussed the comparison of them. Because I know the director was saying that they wanted to go a different way with this, because that one is just completely about the show.
Okay.
Following it from pretty much when they ended their off-Broadway run, preparing for Broadway. I think it's called Chasing Broadway Dreams or something like that. Getting ready for Broadway and then having the opening night, and then this, the getting the first reviews that were good, and then all the way it kind of ends with the Tonys. And so it was focusing in on 3 or 4 of the actors and having them talk about their experiences, and of course him talking about he's been writing it since he was in college, and the various collaborators. So that was really nice, but it was completely focused on the show. So in this case, I think they decided that, you don't want to just recreate that with another one of his shows. You got to think of something different. And of course, this has such a historical basis, so there's plenty you can do.
Right.
And I thought that they wove it back and forth nicely, following the plot of the show with the history of it. Don't feel like I necessarily learned anything more about the history than I didn't know already. But it's still the one thing that was great was the whole scene with Lin-Manuel Miranda and Leslie Odom Jr. at the library, where they were reading the letters that these guys wrote, and and looking at the guns and reflecting over how much time there was to change your mind and cool down. And maybe
and it did
not
happen.
shoot somebody or get shot.
Right.
And yet it didn't. I mean, we think in these days that we all have such hair trigger tempers because of the internet, and you can just fire off something and get mad and immediately react to it. But if you're going to get mad, you're going to get mad anyway, even if it takes 5 weeks in between. Even if it takes you, days to write a lengthy letter by hand and then put it in the mail, and then it gets there, and then you wait for the letter to come back, and you can still be steamed. So anything to do with Hamilton, of course, I enjoy seeing. And now I guess the next big thing we've got coming up is the mixtape, which is going to be various different artists interpreting the music in their particular way, which I wish we'd get here now. Now that we've got the documentary, let's get the next thing for those of us who are living the Hamilton dream vicariously. But it was very interesting to see the scenes that they did show and to be able to see some of the staging and things that we didn't realize. Like in my shot, they are doing shots. I didn't know that. And, at the end when they're doing Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story, that Hamilton is actually on stage there and comes up to Eliza. And that's a very touching moment, which you don't necessarily get from listening to the recording. Or even in the moment when he's in the duel where he's shot and he's going through all these thoughts and everything, and then he thinks of her and she's actually physically there. So that was interesting to see. You would like to see more of it. On the other hand, I can see how it's more powerful in person than on screen, even in the best. Because as we've talked before with filmed plays, if you're focusing in on one person, you're missing all the stuff that's going on around. And then if you're back and seeing all the stuff that's going on around, you're missing the facial expressions, which, if you go to a theater and sit in the back, you're missing the facial expressions anyway, but still. Right. It's always a trade-off. But I will be watching that again, probably. Yeah. Many, many times.
It was a lot of fun.
It will be my go-to, nothing's on TV, let me hit up the DVR and watch the Hamilton documentary again when nobody is in my house, because otherwise they make fun of me. So
luckily my son is right there with me.
Did you watch, so you had family to watch it with? You had people to watch it with?
Well, the first time I watched it by myself, I mean, my daughter was in the room, but she was not paying attention. I was like, come on. But then the second time, then my son was watching it, we had recorded it because he actually, I think, wasn't home when it was first on. So I watched some of it with him.
Good. Did he like it?
Yeah, he liked it a lot. And he has watched like YouTube videos and things that talk about, things that either are incorrect in Hamilton or additional information that he already knows that they mentioned in that. Like, he was actually involved in like 10 duels and it confirmed some of his research that he's done.
Well,
so I think he appreciated that.
How cool that he's doing research.
Research on YouTube. I don't know how legit that is.
Well, it's been legitimized now. It was on PBS, so.
Right. Okay.
Well, let's move on quickly to our two TV marathons that we've been doing. First is Sports Night. We watched the episodes from season 2, Kafelnikov, Shane, Kyle Whitaker's got 2 sacks, and the reunion. Now, I watched this immediately after we recorded last week because I hadn't had time to finish for last week. So I thought, I'm going to watch these right away now and get them out of the way. And now, of course, it's hard to remember them. But as is the problem of quite a bit of Sports Night season 2, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Not exactly sticking in my memory. But in Kafelnikov, Dan meets a therapist in a bar and then is unclear as to whether she's interested in him for a date or because he needs help, which he does. And Jeremy tries to show his mastery over Y2K. Remember when that was a thing?
Yes, I do.
I remember that very well. We all were pretty sure everything was going to fall
Everything
apart.
was going to come to a screeching halt.
I had a friend at my work who gave everybody candles for Christmas because she was pretty sure that we were going to need them. But any thoughts about that episode?
Well, I don't understand why it's called Kafelnikov.
Because Kafelnikov is in the next episode.
It's in the next episode. Like, to the point where after I watched that one, I was like, why was it called that? And I Googled Kafelnikov. I'm like, well, it's a tennis player. That makes sense because, sports night. But and then I watched the next one. I'm like, okay, but.
Yeah, I do not understand. That is, there must be some, I should have Googled around to see if there was some explanation. If the episodes got they moved something from one episode to the next episode and couldn't change the name.
I don't know. I mean, weird. it's I don't think you really know if you're just watching, if you're not watching it after the fact, right? You
don't necessarily know the name of the episode.
You know the name of the episode.
But when you do, it's like, why?
Yeah.
That's very mysterious. Mm-hmm. And the actress who plays the therapist is Jane Brooke. She's one of those people that I see and I think, I know her. What is her name? And I look it up, so I looked it up. But I forgot to look up what it is I know her from. But I know her from something.
Yeah, she looked familiar.
By next week, I will think of what it is I know her from. And then the next episode, which should have been called Kafelnikov, is called Shane. And the Shane in that is a friend of Casey's, who is coming to play for the Yankees and has this interview in which he completely disses New York City and the Yankees in general. And of course, Casey wants to save the guy by cutting it out. And meanwhile, Dana is doing a little dance because that clip is going to be picked up everywhere. And it's going to be wonderful for them. So in the end, they run it and the guy is mad. And Casey basically says, it was a really stupid thing to say.
Right.
Which it totally was.
Yeah.
And that gives the very good analogy of nobody gets to hit my little brother but me, which is something that a rule I have run up against in my past.
And then there's sibling stuff going on in the next episode. Kyle Whitaker's got 2 sacks. Did we know that Dana's brother was a professional football player?
I'm not sure. I think it might have been mentioned somewhere in the previous season and quarter. But certainly in this, did you see where that was going to go? The combination of Dana suddenly talking about her brother and his success constantly, and Casey doing the steroid story?
Yes. Okay. I did see that.
Because having seen it before, I knew where it was going, and I didn't know if it would seem as stupendously telegraphed to somebody who hadn't seen it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty, you know how I don't usually figure that stuff out. But yeah, I was like, well, I can, especially, when Casey comes in and he's like, I need to tell you something. No, just, and then you're like, oh. Yeah, this isn't going to go well for you, Dana.
No.
So.
That was... And Jeremy having to fire the kid who was JJ's...
And what I didn't like about that is that he only fired him once he said something gross about Natalie.
Yes.
Like, he deserved to be fired because he was doing a crappy job.
He did.
And, I don't know why Jeremy was kind of chickening out of firing him.
Yeah.
Which, it's not easy, I get it. But then the thing that spurred him to actually do it had to be that he said something
about his girlfriend. Yeah.
About his girlfriend. Like, that's, I don't know.
Yeah. I agree. I didn't care for that plot all that much. Although I will say that having been in that position, if you're not used to firing people, it's something that you wish to put off as much as possible. Maybe they will just completely change and be decent. Maybe if I just wait long enough, he will not be sitting in the room goofing off. Yeah, that was not so great. But, and then the final episode, the reunion, where Dana's brother comes to the show. And they did, I think, an awesome job. Whether it was casting or whether it was acting, either way, of finding a guy who looks both like a big hulking football player and a little kid who needs a hug from his sister.
Right.
He just looked so sheepish.
And I thought that scene was well done in terms of all the emotions that Dana's feeling and getting them out of her brain into the world.
Yes.
Sometimes these like speechy moments don't ring that true.
Yeah.
But this one I thought did, where she kind of, as she was talking, figured out what she wanted to do or what she needed to do to help him.
Right. That was nice. And then we also had the Secret Santa subplot to that, which was, as the subplots have been in this batch, Not memorable.
Right.
But lots of cheese graters.
Right.
And then
it was sweet though at the end when Isaac like lovingly placed the cheese grater.
That was very sweet. I did like that.
Down his award for something or other and replaced it with a cheese grater.
Yes.
With a ribbon on top.
Yes. Seems like the kind of thing somebody like him would do.
Yes.
And then we move on to The West Wing, in which we watched the second Ainsley Hayes episode, and it's surely to their credit, which, as I have learned from, was it the West Wing Weekly podcast where they pointed out that is not actually the lyric from Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yeah.
It is reminiscent of that lyric, but not. It's Sorkin's rewrite, I guess.
Yeah, it's something like, and it's greatly to his credit,
exactly.
I believe.
Yeah. But I liked this episode a lot. This is one that I always remember fondly. And I know others may have different opinions on it. But I liked them coming to the rescue and did not have any problem with it. And I really, really liked Ainsley's character all throughout, just trying really hard, genuinely really hard. Like, my office is in a ridiculous place, but I'm going to try to make the best of it. My boss is a cricket bat wielding loony, but I'm going to make the best of it. These guys are being incredibly rude to me, but I'm not going to lose my temper.
Right.
Man, did she hold on to her temper. And that moment where she says to Sam, if you could just please be rude to me tomorrow, I would really appreciate it. I've had enough today. And she just holds on to it, and that speaks a lot for her. I don't think I would be able to remain that gracious, especially in her position of obviously going into a place where she was uncomfortable to start out with.
Yes.
And then people not making it easy. And Leo being so sweet. He is so adorable with her. And, it's like she has to tell him that, I'm one of the ones who wrote that op-ed that you should leave off. So he's like, I know. He just goes on being sweet to her. So he seems kind of tickled by the whole thing.
And it is fun seeing John Larroquette as her boss, Lionel Tribby, with the crazy bursting into the Oval Office with his cricket bat and all that stuff.
Yeah, as unlikely as it is that one could actually burst into the Oval Office wielding a cricket bat. One would hope that's not something that the Secret Service would be okay with, but even so, he's hilarious. Both all the scenes with him are just wonderful. He's a one episode character, but delightful.
Right. What did you think of the scene where CJ takes down the general? That was elicited divided opinions on the West Wing Weekly podcast.
I liked that scene a lot. I thought that scene was terrific. And so therefore, at the end, when the president tells her to let him out of the box, I was kind of, huh?
Why
she did all that for nothing. Although it did sort of seem, I felt like CJ was kind of coming to say, I've done the job, but I feel bad about it. That seemed to me what her body language sort of was saying, that, maybe we did the wrong thing here. But nobody else seems to have interpreted it that way. So I don't know if indeed she did it and feels like it was a job well done. And he said, you know what, that thing you just did, I'll call him back and tell him. Never mind. That kind of takes the wind out of those sails. A scene that the West Wing Weekly podcast and the other West Wing podcast I listened to both had a problem with was the one where Toby says, she's sticking up for Ainsley, and Toby says, you're a beautiful woman and nobody ever thought you were stupid. And she says, it's taken 2 years. To me, that has always really clearly been that it took her 2 years into the term to get the respect of the people, of everybody, of the press, of, everybody who she's working with to actually be a respected member of the team. It took 2 years. That's something we've seen, that they would leave her out of things. And now people seem to be interpreting that differently. And I can't see that it seems really clear to me that that's what she means. What did you think?
Yeah, I felt on the side of it that you did and that Rishi did, I think, in the West Wing Weekly podcast, that it was about the respect, not about her looks. Like,
right.
not about like, oh, it took you 2 years to say I looked good.
Yeah, absolutely not that. And not that, I've heard not that it took 2 years for Toby to respect her, just that we've seen that she's been not considered to be a full member of the team. Mm-hmm. That they've been working around her and not sure she was up to doing various things. And, so I thought that was a very nice observation to make that, because she was a woman, it took her this much longer to get everybody's respect and, to become fully involved in things. So I don't quite get why that was confused. And so then we have the subplot on this, speaking of subplots, another subplot of the president, Mrs. Bartlett, looking to have a special meeting of the government and being constantly foiled.
Yeah. I did not need her to present that to Charlie. Like, I really felt bad for Charlie. This is not only your boss's wife, the First Lady of the United States, your girlfriend's mother.
That's true. I hadn't even thought of that. Oh, yeah. But I felt less bad for him because he was able to give it back a little bit. I mean, he was joking back on it pretty good. I mean, the subplot had some good lines, but overall, it's like hearing your parents talking about that stuff. Stop it. Yeah. All in all, I enjoyed this episode a lot.
Yeah. It had a lot of nice, like, burn speeches.
Yes. And the Sam sort of flipping and coming to Ainsley's defense with the two really lousy guys. And then the bit at the end. I really like the bit at the end when they're all in her office. I think that's so sweet. Even though I agree with, I think Josh Molina was saying, afterwards she's going to go down and take all those framed pictures down. Like, at what point did she say, Gilbert and Sullivan is my life?
It's my favorite thing ever in the entire world. Yeah.
That was a little presumptuous, but still sweet.
Right. Definitely a nice effort of like, let's try to make her feel welcome and let's try to make this dungeon into somewhat of a nicer place. And
that was very sweet. And it's our team being the good guys, which is what we always like to see.
Right.
So we move on now. Next week, we will, of course, watch Dancing with the Stars again and see what Halloween fun they have for us. We'll watch the next 4 episodes of Season 2 of Sports Night, the names of which I do not have, but y'all just continue on after the reunion. And we will be watching The Lame Duck Congress on West Wing. And that will be it for our round 2 today. Please subscribe to our Parenting Roundabout podcast so you won't miss any of our episodes, including our daily speed rounds and weekly group chats. As always, you can find recaps, links, and an opportunity to comment on our website at parentingroundabout.com. Goodbye, Catherine.
Bye, Terri.
Goodbye, everybody.